Guess What TV production presents Tell the World, a program which allows every and anyone to tell their story. If you have a burning testimony or any other story, let us encourage someone by sharing your story. After all, everyone has a story. Do not be afraid, because you never know who might be down and your story might lift them off the ground.
Welcome back to my channel, guys. Guess What TV, where we keep you guessing. Welcome to the Guess What TV podcast, Tell the World. I'm your host, Felicia Gooden, and today I have a very special guest, Bernadette Als-Pierre. Welcome, Bernadette.
Thank you very much, Felicia.
So, Bernadette is a cancer survivor, and she's here to tell the world about her story of how God has been good to her. Can I call you Bernadette?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
You can even say B.
All right, Bernadette. So tell me, when were you first diagnosed?
It's interesting that you should ask that. The very set day that I turned 60 years old, and so that happened about 8 years ago. So you're guessing my age.
Wow.
Yes, I felt this lump, and I found it was a little strange. And I said, what do the 60s bring? Wow, a new turn, a new page.
Bernadette, you're saying this was 8 years ago, but you're looking like 16.
Oh, thank you so very much.
How is it that you managed to look like this,
I don't know if it's your perception, but I guess the grace of God has been good. He has continued to be good, and I thank Him for that. Thank you for your praises, Felicia.
You're welcome. So, how did you find this out? What were you doing at the time?
Well, I was having a shower, and I felt this little itch on my breast, and I scratched it. It pained, and I felt a little lump. I'm like, oh my goodness, don't tell me this. The first thing that comes in your mind is like, wow, this is the big C. So, called up a girlfriend. She said, don't worry with that, man. That might just be some milk glands, or, it might be something minor. It's good to have friends like that, who would change your mind from thinking about the big C.
Yes, because I know that this topic is very scary to everyone, especially women.
It is, definitely is.
So, after you felt that lump, what are some of the diagnostic procedures that you did?
All right, so I would have done mammograms before.
Right.
And so feeling that lump, I'm like, okay, the first thing I need to do, let me go to a doctor, go to my physician one time. Smart. I'm not wasting any time. So I went, he felt it, and he said, yes, I am feeling something. So mammogram, did the mammogram, and the results came back that it was probably benign. Say, but come back in 6 months. So I felt good, and I went back in 6 months.
Interesting. So when you went back in 6 months' time now, as a matter of fact, what caused you to want to go back in 6 months' time?
Because that is what they told me, that probably it might come back in 6 months' time. And 6 months will give them a conclusive report that, okay, if it is really benign, yes, they will find out. So I went back in 6 months, and
right.
You know what? Lo and behold, there was no lump, there was no pain, there was no itch. And I was like the happiest person in the world. Okay, great. But then he said, come back in 6 months again.
Again?
So I went back in 6 months again, and this time I wasn't so bubbly because they saw something.
Right.
So from the mammogram, I went on to do a sonogram or an ultrasound.
Right.
And then they saw that it wasn't one lump, it was two.
Right.
And they said I needed to do a needle biopsy. Doctor said, don't worry, it's just a sharp needle we pushing in and it doesn't pain.
So by this time, we're looking at 1 year and 6 months after you
Exactly.
felt the first lump.
Exactly.
Right.
So did the biopsy and they concluded that yes, it was cancer.
Wow.
You know, I'm like, why me? That's a natural reaction,
Yes, yes.
Why me? And I will tell you why I said, why me? Because I always felt that I was doing the right thing.
But sickness is no respecter of persons.
I know, and I used to teach food and nutrition.
Right.
And of course, cancer would have been one of the topics that we would have taught, especially in the nutrition aspect. And what foods to eat and what to avoid. And I was always particular with what I ate. So I'm like, this couldn't really be happening to me.
Right.
And of course, I have a sister and I called her. She lives abroad and she said, come up and get a second opinion because probably they don't know what they're doing.
So you were fortunate enough to have traveled overseas to carry out further diagnostic procedures.
Yes.
And what were the treatment options that were made available to you?
Okay, so interestingly is when I got to the States, it was like a deja vu. I had to do everything all over.
Really?
Because they did not consider any report that I gave them
from the
here.
Caribbean.
That's right.
Interesting.
So I went back through the mammogram, the sonogram, the biopsy, and this time my poor breast was paining.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yes. So and of course you started to worry at that time too. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm praying, Father, let this cup pass from me.
Yes.
And the worst was the outcome.
Right. So what was the outcome?
The doctor said, remember I left here, they saw 2 lumps.
Right.
And the doctor said, well, we didn't see 2 lumps. We saw 3.
3?
Yes. And so he said, you normally have an aggressive type of cancer and a mild one. And you had both types. And I'm like, what? All of that happening to me?
Wow.
And of course, to the normal human being, which I am, that was devastating.
Of course.
It really, really, really was.
For anyone.
Especially as a woman.
Yes.
Your breast. A lot of thoughts were going through my mind.
So what did you do? A lumpectomy? A mastectomy?
Well, before I did the lumpectomy, before I did anything, the doctor suggested that I do a mastectomy.
Right.
And I'm like, if it's just some lumps, why you didn't just take out the lumps, just do a lumpectomy. But then he said, based on where the lumps were, probably close to the nipple area, was sort of difficult to remove.
Yeah.
And then again, the size of my breasts, as you see, they're not very big, So he said the best thing to do, the best option would be a mastectomy.
So you opted for a mastectomy. And how was that?
Well, of course, I couldn't think about doing a mastectomy. I'm like, cut off your whole breast. Cutting off your whole breast. And I'm like, wow, how can I live with this? How can I live with this? And therefore, when you don't know where to turn, you turn to God.
That's right.
And it's amazing how He places things in your way at the right time. So certain thoughts came to my mind. One of the things He placed in my mind was, listen, what is the purpose of the breast? To give suck to your young. My children are all grown. They are men in their 30s. So you have fulfilled your primary purpose of your breast.
Unless if you intended on having another child.
Oh, please, at this age. Oh, that was the furthest thing from my thought anyhow. But I'm like, okay, cut off my breast. Mission accomplished. Um, but that didn't sit well with me either. So he had to tell me other things. And it's a funny thing again, how the Bible would really speak to you in a time when you need it. So it's
Come on
like,
now.
if your right hand offend you, cut it off. And ironically, it was my right breast.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, Father, I heard you. Right breast, okay, cut it off. That still didn't sit well either. I'm like, oh boy, this is a big sacrifice I have to make to cut off my breast
Just to save your life.
just to save my life. And I think the biggest thing that he implanted in my system was this. You're talking sacrifice. You have to sacrifice your breast. You're giving up something that you love so much. I gave up my son. I sacrificed my son for this
Jesus
whole
Christ.
world.
Yes.
And so what if you just sacrifice one breast to save one life?
Yes.
And I'm like, wow, that hit it.
Yes.
That hit it, you know. And then, well, added to that, my husband was with me and he said, okay, girl, cut it off, cut it off. So once you have that confirmation from him,
That assurance.
and then
Yes.
with God speaking to me in so many different ways, I'm like, okay, I made up my mind.
Right. So what year was this?
This was 2016.
2016. So you had the
December of 2016.
right. So you had the mastectomy in 2016. And what was the recovery period like?
Okay. So the recovery period was a bit stressful, you know, coming out of the operating theater. And people tend to say that the Lord really does place you in a position where he puts angels around you.
Right.
And the doctor said afterwards that I suffered 2 heart attacks.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not sure if he was correct, but what I know happened is when I tried to raise up off the bed in the recovery room, I felt very dizzy and I just bawled out, nurse! And that was it. I could feel them rushing me probably to do MRI. They did that twice.
Right.
You know, but what had happened, I think, is he did not put in enough of the JPs to drain the liquid. And so I had to go back into surgery again to put in another JP. And I was there walking around with 3 JPs. And I said, okay, these are my 3 sons. You know, I had to comfort myself, you know, and yeah, that was it.
Wow. So God saved you and you're alive today.
He did. He really did. He really did. You know, then the biggest part was what should happen after the mastectomy. Now, normally you would hear people based on the size of the growth. They would do chemo first to reduce it.
Right.
Then they would do the surgery and then they will do radiation. And of course, I had been doing some reading and I'm saying, look, no chemo and radiation for me, you know, I don't want those.
So you didn't want any chemo or radiation?
I didn't want those at all because, you know, you're reading and funny enough, you're reading all these negative things about radiation,
Right.
burning up your skin. I am already such a darkie. And they say when you have radiation, I might become a blackie. You know, I've been hearing about chemo and it killing the good cells and the bad cells and all these negative things. And I'm like, I say, Lord, I already obeyed you. I did the mastectomy. Please take away those cups from me. You know, and
so God would have it that you had no need to do the chemo or the radiation.
exactly.
Isn't that a good God?
He is great. He's not good. He's great.
So,
you know.
So Bernadette, God really took you through that surgery safely and you're alive to tell your story today. But what would you tell anyone that's listening today?
All right. Ladies, you out there, and men too, this is what I want you to do. This is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. It is a month where we become aware of our breasts. And your body does speak to you. Just remember that. When it speaks, you need to listen. So you might get a little pain, even though it might not always mean that it's cancer. What you need to do is just go and have yourself checked out. There's no harm in checking yourself. It's better to be safe than sorry. So have your checkups. Nothing is wrong with that. Watch your diet. I have been looking at mine, and I paid a little extra attention to it now. So watch what you eat. You're cutting out all those red meats and cut out all the extra carbs. Get you lots of vegetables and fruits. And you know what also? There are lots of herbs right around us that God has placed around us. Get hold of them and use them. Right? That's a whole nother lesson by itself. Your therapy of your mind is important. Kind of try to rid your mind of anything that is negative. Develop a strategy for thinking positive in every area of your life. Get in your exercise. You see, it's a holistic thing. It's not a one thing. I thought the diet alone was it. But no, it is a holistic thing. And trust me, keep God in the picture. Keep God in the picture and everything will be all right with you. Even though you're going through a situation, He might tell you just what to do so you can deal with it. So the idea is to eradicate breast cancer by following proper guidelines and putting God into the picture.
That's right. And to add to that, to get your yearly mammogram done.
That's right.
As Bernadette said before, it's not every lump is cancerous. It's not every pain is related to cancer, but you will never know. Just one last advice for any woman that may have felt a lump and they're so afraid to go and check it out. They're afraid to go to the doctor. What would you tell that woman?
Have no fear. God has placed doctors here with a particular skill, and that is to help us. So go, and if you can't go by yourself, get a good friend. You must have somebody you can talk to. If you have nobody home, there must be a pastor, a priest, somebody that you can have as an associate to go along with you and just get yourselves checked out. Come on, I did it. And because I did it, I did not have to do any chemo or any radiation.
Because early detection was the key.
That is it. Early detection was the key. Remember, your body speaks to you. So listen and obey the instructions of your body.
All right.
So
thank you.
You're most welcome,
Mrs. Bernadette Als-Pierre, for joining us on this podcast. Stay tuned for more. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Turn on the bell notification so you'll never miss a video when I post. Peace. I'm out. See you in the next podcast.